Well, welcome to the Speak Black Women podcast. I am super excited. My name is Quinn Conyers, and I have the honor and pleasure of being the host of this podcast. And if you know anything about me, I look high and low, left and right, east and west to find the biggest, the brightest, the most amazing Black women who are using their voices in their business, their career, their volunteer opportunities, or even overall just to make the world and their life and the lives of others a better place. So I'm excited about today's guest because I saw her speak. And listen, I am not easily impressed, but there's something about charisma and confidence in a Black woman on stage that makes my heart skip a beat. So if you guys are brand new to the Speak Black Women podcast, welcome. Make sure you go back and literally wherever you watch or listen to your podcast, you leave us a review. Let me know how you like it. And for those of you who've been rocking and rolling with me for over a year and a half, you are officially family, and I'm so excited that you are here. But just in case you are new or you need a refresher, I'm not just going to tell you about the Speak Black Women podcast. I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to introduce you to our very special guest. Stay tuned. Well, now that you know a little bit more about me and the podcast, let's jump right into it because I don't like to keep my guests waiting. And this is going to be a very special episode for two different reasons. A lot of you who are like me, you want to speak. You want to grace stages, platforms, and podiums. And you're trying to figure out, what do event planners want from me? What do meeting planners want from me? Or how do I connect? Or furthermore, maybe you want to polish and perfect your own speaking skills. Well, you're in the right place because I promise you, the guest today is going to give us a really diverse look at how she uses how she uses her voice, but more importantly, how her industry looks at hiring voices on virtual as well as in-person stages. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up our very special guest. Her name is Shelli Vasser Gilliam. And yes, that is a beautiful yellow scarf that you see around her neck to match her awesome personality. So for those of you who don't know who she is absolutely amazing. And her purpose is to serve, inspire, empower, and positively influence people. And her passion is really seeing people like you and me thrive. She is an accomplished executive. That means she didn't do this yesterday. She's been doing this for years. And she's known as a trusted advisor and a mentor. She's accredited for literally identifying staffing needs, optimizing participant skill set, and recruiting and inspiring high performance interdisciplinary teams. More importantly, she has a lot of skill sets, including executive leadership experience. She's people-centric. She is mission and vision focused. And she also has an awesome, amazing role that I found her in. She is currently the president of the MPI chapter, the Potomac one, which is one of the largest chapters. I did my research on MPI, and Potomac is where it's at. So I'm going to be quiet for just a second. Miss Shelli, welcome to the Speak Black Women podcast.
Well, thank you, Quinn. Wow, what an introduction. Really appreciate it. And thank you for the invitation to ask me to join you today. I really appreciate that. I think as I look forward, one of the things I would say, in addition to everything that you just said, which was amazing, I had to think, was that really me? Is authenticity. Because I think authenticity is something that really matters today. People need to see us in our most authentic selves. And so we'll talk about that and a whole lot of other things as we go forward. But thank you so very much.
No, my pleasure. So I connected with you. There was an MPI event that was being hosted, and you were getting passed the baton from the former president, and you were stepping into your role. And I want to start there. For those people who are not familiar, what is MPI, and why is the Potomac chapter like just so thriving, growing, and literally one of the top chapters of the organization?
Yes, so that was one of the biggest nights of my life. I was installed as the board president of MPI Potomac and the president of the chapter, really. We happen to be one of the largest chapters, and we've been around for actually since the late 70s. So the chapter's been around for about 43 years or so. We are the community of meeting and event professionals, and we're an inclusive community. And we embrace learning and professional development, as well as all networking and opportunities for business exchanges for our members. So that night that you met me, which was back in June, I believe, at the Warner Theater, was one of, speaking of Speak Up or Speaking Black Woman, was one of the largest stages. Actually, I think it was the largest stage I've ever been on. And that night was incredible for a number of reasons, because as a child, I could not speak in front of large groups. I would totally just melt down. So you can imagine speaking on the stage of the Warner Theater, an 1,800 seat theater. And no, we did not have 1,800 people there, but I felt so comfortable on that stage. And I'm just thankful and grateful that what I said resonated with you. I told a great story about how I came to be in leadership at MPI. And after that, and after walking off the stage, I realized that that story resonated with so many people in the audience that I didn't even give all the details, and people were like, "No, I got it. I understood what you were saying, and it does matter." So, MPI is a wonderful community. It's a global community of about 11,000 meeting professionals. Those meeting professionals are both suppliers and planners. So those of us who are planning events, as well as those who have the venue or the service or the product for the event. I have had the great pleasure throughout my career to serve on both sides. So we call us affectionately supplanners, supplier planner blend. So there are some who are strictly planners and some who are strictly suppliers. I happen to have worked in both during my career. MPI is based, headquartered. The international headquarters is in Dallas, Texas. And as I said, we have over 11,000 members globally and about 66 chapters. And to date, MPI Potomac happens to be the largest one, which is a place that it took a while to get to. We used to be in the first position about 20 years ago, and then we moved back from there. But now there are a few of us in that first, second, third slot right now. And of course, the pandemic has changed a lot for the organization. But I'm grateful to be here, grateful to lead at this time, feel like I've been called to do so at this time. And this is where I am. So yeah, that night that you met me, I accepted the honor of being the leader of this great organization, this chapter here in the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area.
I love it. And you mentioned something that I want to kind of dive into a little bit about being authentic. And I can tell that you're authentic. You were authentic on stage. And I feel like you're going to be authentic in your role. When you're leading an organization of, meeting planners and suppliers and things like that, like, how are you going to keep your authentic voice? Because I can only imagine that there's people probably pulling, you should do things this way, or you should do things that way. Like, how do you plan to kind of navigate and still like have your voice be heard in your term as Madam President, but also making sure that you're listening and incorporating like the vision, the concerns, and also the expectations of, the chapter?
Yeah, I think so much of it is leading by example. Part of that includes going out and asking folks what they're interested in, sharing what it is that your vision is as a leader, what your expectations are. Our board, which is an 18-member board, which includes me as one of the 18, we are all very clear on our vision and our mission. And you heard our priorities that night about rebuilding and reconnecting, re-energizing and re-engaging with folks so that we can bring that passion back that folks had before the pandemic. Now that we are hopefully walking forward through and out of the pandemic, hopefully. So it's about reaching out to members, something I love doing. Or one of the ways that I activate my gifts, one of my true innate gifts is to connect with people, to foster and nurture relationships with people, to embrace partnerships, to fill gaps. And so I go out and I look for those. On any given day, I have communicated with several either board members, members of this chapter, whether it's by text, by phone. I make myself available. Folks know they can call me, they can text me, they can email me, and I will reply and respond, and in many cases immediately. So I think that's all part of authenticity. Mm-hmm. So once you hear all of those, various opinions and thoughts, and everyone has one, of course, then you put that together and you see what out of that matches or parallels what it is that you want to do and how you want to lead. And so I think it's really a combined effort. I have my thoughts about leadership and how I see this term going. We're 5 months into this term, and things are looking pretty good. But again, I'm in constant contact with the members, and I think you have to do that in leadership, whether you're leading a company, you're leading an organization, or sorority or fraternity, if that's the case. Whatever it is that you're leading, you really have to stay close to your members, to those that are really doing the work, because they understand how to implement it and how to do it, I think, a lot better than you might in that senior leadership role.
No, that's good stuff. And, it's interesting because what I like about MPI is it does have the meeting planner side, but it also has the suppliers or the vendors who also serve the industry. And I was introduced to it because I'm a speaker. So I'm not a planner, but I would be the vendor supplier person. And the reason why I went, because I was curious, like, is this a good fit for me? Should I be there? So I know I'm not the only one. I know that people know about MPI. So I have a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of speakers who are listening in. And I think it's a wonderful organization. I'm actually going to probably be joining in the top of the year. I just came off of a board. I was on the board of the Better Business Bureau. And then I'm still on the board of the what's the second board? The the Global Black Women Chamber of Commerce. And that keeps me very busy. So anytime I join something, I want to make sure I can give it 100%. So I had to kind of come off a couple of things before I join something else. But I want you to talk to not the meeting planners and their benefits of joining. What about the suppliers, whether it's a venue, whether it's a speaker, whether it's an MC, what would be the benefits of them potentially getting involved with the Potomac chapter or wherever they are? Because I know that there's chapters all across, and this is a global audience. Why would a speaker or an MC or a comedian even join MPI? Why would it make sense for them?
Yeah, absolutely. And speakers absolutely should. We've had, even just this year, a couple of speakers, coaches, folks join. So I look forward to you joining as well in the new year. Speakers should absolutely participate because it is one of the necessary elements of programs, right? And we are the audience, we being meeting professionals, are the audience that you'll want to be in front of. There are all sorts of opportunities for speakers to advocate for themselves, to sell their services, but in a softer way, right? By being a member, by being involved in the community, by serving on a committee and having folks get to know you, and by submitting their proposals for call for presenters, or stating that they're interested in speaking during an educational session or a program. Comedian, same thing, except with a little bit of a twist, because I think when we look at our programs, there are ways to infuse engagement into those programs where comedians could be involved, musicians could be involved, speakers can be involved. Nice. We also have in our global audience, World Education Congress, MPI, global, as we refer to it as in Dallas, the World Education Congress, which is coming up in San Francisco, and we're celebrating our 50th anniversary of being an organization. That's an opportunity to be on the global stage in front of a global audience, right? To speak. So there are, and not that you couldn't do that outside, but it's always more recognized if you're a member of the organization, you're participating with the organization, and then when you submit your proposal, and it shows that you're part of the community. I think all of that bodes really well. So there are any number of ways to engage, and that's what we do here in terms of the organization. And so I would encourage speakers, comedians, musicians. We have hoteliers, destinations, marketing companies. We have what we call DMOs, or destination marketing companies, as well. So and DMCs. So there are any number of organizations that types of organizations that are involved. It's not just those of us who are planners, maybe for associations or corporations, or doing social or government planning, and not just for those who are supplier side, right, or one particular type of supplier. There are numerous types. We have audiovisual professionals, we have production professionals, those who have platforms. I mean, there are so many different types. We have decorators and the creative types who are designing the sets for events. So they're all a part of this great, what we call ecosystem with MPI that really works together very nicely.
No, that's good. I love that. And that's what I felt. And that's what I seen. Like, okay, this is definitely a place where, you can go and network. I mean, it's about relationship building anyway. So why not be a part of an organization that serves your industry? Now, time just goes so fast. I'm looking like, oh my gosh, it's almost 9 o'clock.
It does.
No, the Potomac chapter, from what I saw, was very, very diverse. And I don't know if it's always been that way. And I'm just curious, when you were stepping into this role, were you nervous as a Black woman? Are they going to receive me? Are they going to respect me? Is this going to be okay? Or were you like, no, I got this? Because I feel like we're in style right now, right? This whole diversity, equity, and inclusion is really to our favor, where organizations, whether it's leadership roles, they're looking to hire or put a spotlight on the greatness of diverse individuals that's already been there. But I feel like it's a huger push. Did you feel any type of pressure stepping into this leadership role as a Black woman?
So actually, this is a great story. I didn't say it earlier. Devin Lewis, who was on stage that night as the president and now immediate past president, and I are the first two Black women.
Hold on.
Yes. Thank you. The first two Black women who have served as president of MPI Potomac. There have been other women of color, but we are the first two Black women in 43, 44 years. And we happen to run our terms consecutively. So from the very beginning, Devin and I have sought to support one another, to be there for one another, because our terms followed or my term follows her term, and we are the first two. So what you heard Devin say that night, which is still true today, and still what we continue to pride ourselves in working on, is that we may be the first two, but we won't be the last two. And so what we've done, and part of what you heard in my story and that I shared that night, which I'll share for your audience very quickly, is that I walked into an industry event at one point, so about 4 years ago, and I always felt the industry was inclusive. The industry has always been diverse, but to some extent, that I've been a member, and I've been a member for about 21 years now. And I walked into an industry event, and I looked at the stage, and I looked at the audience, and I looked back at the stage, and I looked at the audience, and I thought, there's a disconnect here. And the disconnect is that there were no women of color on the stage. There were 5 women, but there were no women of color. Now, it was a women's leadership event, but women of color have some leadership stories to share as well. And I walked out of that room and I thought, I don't ever want to see that again. And how can I make sure that happens? So someone asked me if I would join a committee when I walked out of that room, and I said, let me think about it. I think so, but I'll get back to you. I followed up with the person. I said, yes. From there, I submitted my application for the board. So I said yes again. I became the board director for leadership and career development. From there, I submitted my application for vice president of membership. I said yes. I joined or I continued my board term in leadership as vice president of membership. And then from there, I applied and interviewed for president-elect. And I said yes. And I got that role, and now I'm president. Had I not raised my hand, which turned out to be a campaign that I did not, standing on the stage of the Warner Theater, realize was going to happen. It turned out to be a campaign. I raised my hand. I said yes. I let folks know that I am available and that I wanted to do, I wanted to move forward in leadership, and that's how it worked for me. We became more diverse in terms of our board leadership, over the last 3 or 4 years. It has been a monumental change in the last 3 or 4 years from what it used to be, prior to that. And we are very proud of that. We're also proud of our DE&I efforts, more than efforts, our program and our work, and all of the programs that we've put into place and are still putting into place right now in this term with DE&I as well. So a lot has changed. A lot of that, I think you have to have the experience in order to understand the experience, right?
No, yeah, that's good. And it's similar as you're speaking. I just recently joined the National Speakers Association, and I said yes to one thing, and it was like a spiral thing, very similar. Like, not and I think that, what I always like to bring up is when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's not just about Black women, Asian women, Latino women, or gender. I'm also seeing a turn in, literally age, right? So, I was like shocked, how I felt like I was definitely like the youngest, to be in that room. And I'm like, okay, do I fit in? Do they think this is bring your daughter to work day? So I feel like, and I just would love for you to speak about that as we begin to, wrap it up. Like, what is the opportunities for the next generation of meeting planners and speakers? I'm talking about the people who might be 30 or under, or 40 and under, and are coming to these organizations and they're like, oh my gosh, like I feel like I'm 10, 20 years younger than the majority of the members. Is there room for us? Is there a place for us at MPI? And is our voice welcomed?
Yes, and yes, and yes. And what I would say is don't select yourself out. Okay. Don't self-select out. Get involved in committees. It is the best and the fastest way to become known is by your committee work. A lot of people focus on the strengths and skills that they already have, so they join committees where they can use those same strengths and skills. We tell folks that it's also a good opportunity that if there's something you want to try without the pressure of what would happen if you were at work and something occurred and maybe didn't quite work out right, you can try it by volunteering on a committee with MPI. Right? Find a mentor. So that is extremely important. I have 2 mentors. I referenced them that night. They have been godsends for me. I love these 2 women. They aren't even in the industry, and they have served in such a great capacity for me as advisors and as mentors and counselors, and people who, even though they're not in the industry, they've been helpful. And I would also just add, probably, is let some people know. Again, you got to raise your hand. You have to let folks know that you are ready for prime time, that you are ready to help, to whatever that is, whatever your gifts and talents are, that you are ready to level up and use those gifts and talents within that organization.
I love that, because I feel like people are like, well, I think they know what I do. Why not? But sometimes it's all about, being, vocal. So I love all of that. Well, listen, I know that you are a busy woman, so I want to thank you for literally giving some of your time and your attention. I know that we're connected on LinkedIn. I put your information. So people want to connect with you. I do have LinkedIn, but if there's another way that they want to connect with you, learn more about MPI or any of your other endeavors, how can people connect with you after today's podcast?
Yeah, so you can also reach me on Twitter, which is at SV Gilliam, or you can email me at Shelli@VasserGilliam.com, and I will reply to you. I hope to be able to rejoin your podcast at another time, Thank you so much for the invitation. and for this
Okay,
time.
awesome. Thank you so much. We'll hang out for just a second. I'm going to close out and I'm going to come right back to you. Okay.
All right.
Listen, y'all, I don't know about you, but I got some nuggets. I had a pen and a paper as she was talking. I was taking notes. I know that I'm the host, but I'm also a lifetime student. So I loved it. I'm excited to become a part of her MPI community under her leadership. That's definitely one of my professional development things I have to join at the top of 2022. If you love this episode, make sure you go ahead and connect with Shelli. She mentioned that you can connect with her on LinkedIn or Twitter, as well as make sure you go ahead to the Speak Black Women podcast. I don't know if you're listening at your leisure, you're catching us on YouTube, but I also want to make sure that you leave us a note. Let us know. Give us a review. Did you like this? Go ahead and let us know, or even email me some topics on what I can do or guests you would like to hear from. If you want, or if you haven't already done so, go to speakblackwoman.com. You can learn more about the events we have coming up, any merch, and you can also listen to some past episodes. Until next time, thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Speak Black Woman podcast. Remember, as a Black woman in business or in your career, your voice is your secret weapon to being super successful. So make sure that you lean in and you leverage every single aspect of your voice so you can be super successful. I'll see you next time. Enjoy the rest of your